Welcome to Reimagining Retirement, an interview with Paul Bethke. Dan and I have known Paul and his wife Margaret for decades. Dan and Paul were both engineers, electrical engineers at Motorola way back when. And we went to the same church for a number of years. And our wedding anniversaries are a week apart. So we've taken a few trips together. And last October, well, just a month and a half ago, actually, we took a hiking trip to Utah. And as we were hiking, lots of hiking, there was a lot of time to discuss. And just in our conversations, when I wasn't worried about where I was putting my foot next, I realized that Paul is thinking beyond himself in retirement. And I thought that maybe a conversation with Paul would be helpful for anybody else who would like to get involved in things later in life when but they're not maybe sure what to get involved in. So that's what we'll talk about today. And I welcome you, Paul.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So Paul, you were trained as an electrical engineer. You had several different jobs, and I don't know that we need to discuss your work history,
Hmm.
but you retired a year or two ago. I can't remember exactly when.
About a year and a half ago in April of 2024, I retired
Okay.
officially for the third
Okay.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sometimes we don't, sometimes our plans don't quite work out.
Right, right.
And so you experienced a couple of incidents in your mid 40s that kind of changed your view about retirement. And what can you tell us about those?
Sure. So the first one was it was my father that retired, and we and he was a teacher, by the way, so he spent a lot, almost his entire career teaching. Um, so I was able to see my father and his retirement, and and how well he did that and handled that transition in his life. Was one, and I'll swing back around on that in a sec. The other one was I joined a men's group at my church. I had a couple of retired individuals that were at my table, so there we were sharing, and so I was learning from both of these places, and I was seeing something that was a common theme between the two. One of them was my father. So the hole, I would say, that was left in his life once he retired, he was never really able to fill that once he hit retirement. So he tried many different things. He volunteered at soup kitchens and other things like that. He was a part of an international student exchange program, and then he actually even went back to substitute teaching for a while to try and fill that. And that actually backfired because when he was a teacher, the kids were his kids, and they respected him. And when he went back as a substitute, they were not his kids, and it actually made him feel worse going back to substitute teaching. So that didn't go so well. And then also at my table at church, one of the individuals, one of the two guys that retired, he actually went into a state of depression that he really was. It was difficult to come out. In fact, a couple of times we had to go to his house to go meet because he wouldn't come out of his house. So those didn't go so well. So that kind of got me kind of watching and kind of trying to understand, what is retirement. I guess I need to say that for me, and both my grandparents died. My grandfathers died within 3 or 4 years of retiring. So for me, retirement was like the goal line of a football field, and in the end zone is those retirement years, and then at the end of the end zone, you're gone, and so for me, retirement meant I wanted to get there as fast as possible. In order to do that, I needed to make as much money as possible while I was before retirement. So it was a really different shift to see that, okay, I'm rushing, 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 spending all this energy trying to get to retirement. And then when I'm looking at others that are retired, they're miserable. They're not happy. And it's like, well, wait a minute, time out here. And that's when the guys at church too really stepped in and as you're sitting and talking. And by the way, our group met at 6 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, so we have some dedicated people, right? That really and over a period of 10 to even 15 years that we started to unpack that as I got closer and closer to retirement. Um, and I learned so much from those guys too that I think also helped me in retirement. They really my spiritual growth, right? Throughout the years is kind of a gradual growth and growth and growth. And with these guys and the challenges that these guys placed on me and what we did really led to a whole lot more freedom and just being really understanding what salvation really is about and what Christ wants us to feel with salvation and the freedom that does come with that. So that group took that to another height, and that really helped, I think, as I was starting to prepare for retirement.
That's fascinating. And I think a lot of people have that impression that, well, let's work really hard, get to retirement. But sometimes we don't really think about, well, then what? What are we going to do when we retire? And I so appreciate that you are thinking beyond yourself in retirement. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I give credit a lot to the guys. I mean, the retirement for me, they changed my view on it. It is no longer that line that we got to get to,
Mhm.
right? It's
Mhm.
like that's just a point at which we don't work for pay anymore. Now, I will say that in my logical mind, I kind of said, okay, so in retirement, then I'm going to join God's army, right? So I'm gonna work for me for my life, right? And
Mhm.
then I'm gonna join the army, and the as I look back on that, right, the learning that I have there is that we should be a part of God's army before retirement, after retirement, and in fact, just because we are retired doesn't mean that we can't be effective for God and what He's doing in His kingdom. In fact, even more so that we have a little bit more time on our hands, so that we can maybe even be more effective for God and what He's trying to do in the world today.
Absolutely
So,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said.
Mm.
So, and it's funny that people don't always. I didn't see it like that either, and it's interesting that in your 40s you started to come to that conclusion, and I don't remember when I came to that more of that conclusion, but our whole life is for God to use however He wants to use it. And
Right,
yeah,
right.
and yeah. So,
Well,
when we get to late adulthood, then those things start to make more sense because we realize maybe that, okay, we've got 20 years of productive work potentially. And what are we going to do?
right, right. And I think at the encouragement of the guys as well, Judy, that they 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 pushed that to the point where it's like, okay, so why don't you take this time? And it was about, I would say, I started about 15 years before I retired, um, trying to just join different groups, right? Working and seeing, how does this fit for my what I would like to do or what I feel I can do. And I think, interestingly enough, I think I'm a little bit of a gardener. But as an electrical engineer, gardening is really foreign, really, to me. And the only gardening experience I had prior was my mom when we grew up that we had a garden, right? So I wasn't thinking of gardening, I guess, as something that I would like to at least use as a transition from working for a living and then working for out for money, right? But still active. And so I tried all these other activities around me, and good ones, Habitat for Humanity, feed our starving children, and there were a number of others. I think I think I did. I actually did. I tried to look at starting my own nonprofit, right? That
Yeah.
I was going to piece together some relationships that I had formed at Motorola, and people were off doing non-volunteer, I mean not non-profit type work, and seeing if I can't do something to piece that all together. That didn't quite work out. But all this time while I'm trying all this stuff, and by the way, I'm reporting back to my guys every week. It's like, okay, how's the plan coming, Paul? Right? And it was really them that encouraged me. The interesting thing, Judy, is that I look back on it right now is that really it wasn't something that I thought God was just grabbing and saying, okay, I want you to go do this, right? And I would say that to be open and honest, that there were times during this period where it's like I'm trying to find something that I can grab onto that I can transition in. Then I was like crying out to God. And I was saying, God, please tell me, just tell me which thing I should be going to. And Judy, there was one time that I swear I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for an answer, and then this thought comes into my head that says, "There's people hurting everywhere. Pick one." So and at that point, um, it was like, okay, all right. I kind of get now as I look back on that as well as it's like God's promise that He will be there with us. And if it's His work that He wants us to do, then He will do the work, not me, right? So I was
Yeah.
looking at it for me. I'm gonna go figure out what I can do good and what I can transition in. And it's like, yeah, I think God's got some different plans. So that's why gardening was the thing that, and we were volunteering for that whole time, like 15 years at the garden. And we eventually were like co-leaders with like three or four other people. We really enjoyed it. It's like, you know what, maybe that's it. So I'll just try that, and we'll transition off with that between the two. So and then during that period as well, we decided that that we did want to move away from the Chicago metropolitan area and move up to Door County here. And we looked at the gardening piece and we kind of tested that waters. And there's no community garden that's growing product for the food pantry. And it's like perfect. I think we're okay there. So that was at least the plan before I went into retirement, and got us to sort of where we're at now,
Yeah.
up here.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you were just volunteering in a garden, not really thinking about this is what I might do in retirement, and it just kind of happened, or nothing else worked out.
Yeah, nothing else worked out. Yeah, and I'm starting. It's not easy knowing God's direction for your life, right? And when He's speaking to you or not. And one of the things that I found, Judy, is that oftentimes it's maybe the absence of something, right? That I'll give you an example. There's actually one of the things at the men's group is something called men's missional mentoring. And one of the guys at my table was actually leading that organization. And for years, he would ask me, "Do you want to come join our group? It's a 9 month commitment, right? And it's got meetings, and you got to read books and stuff." And it's like, oh my goodness. And it was towards the end of before we moved that it finally, and he asked me again. I said, "You know what? I'll go pray about it, right?" But which I did. But for me, sometimes that means I'm going to go back and figure out an excuse why I can't do it, right? And I'm sitting there praying with God, and I'm waiting for, okay, now my brain's going to kick in, and I'm going to come up with some excuses. There were no excuses. And I told him that. I said, you know what? The reason I'm coming is not because I feel God pushing me toward, but He's given me a sense of peace, and He's just taken away all the excuses such that, no, I guess I'll go. And that was kind of like it with the garden as well, right? It was like I'm trying all these other things. I'm trying to do it on my own, and then there's this thing underlying, and it's like, yeah, maybe that's where God can kind of step in and go. So then to continue through the transition period over the goal line into the end zone right here. So when we got up here, my brother, and actually because I retired and then didn't retire and retired and didn't retire a number of times, so he said, "Hey, there's this class up here. It's called a Master Naturalist, and it'd be probably a good thing for you to go to." And I think for me, it was like, you know what, that would be a great way to start to meet some people up here, meet who might be able to kind of help us to do the garden thing. Um, so off I went to the class, and it was a 12-week class that was all day on Friday. So it took a lot of time, but I did meet a bunch of really great people. And one of those things was this climate change coalition. So I came up here with gardening. Then all of a sudden, there's this climate change coalition. It's like, and I've also learned with God, like to say no, to just try to say, okay, well, I can do that. I can try that, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see if God blesses it or not. And so I decided, okay, we'll join. So I joined the Climate Change Coalition. That was last year. Then to swing around until this year, they actually had a joint project that they're doing with a conservancy up here called the Ridges, where they have 5 experimental plots. And one of the last boreal forests in the United States is right up here, right next to the ridges. So a boreal forest being a forest with trees that grow in colder weather as they thrive. There's some fir in there, and there's a couple of pines, white pine and red pine and stuff. So I thought, well, okay, I can go volunteer and do that. So I went into that, and then loved it. Right, we're out there planting trees, we're out there plotting stuff, and there's a great group of people that are there week after week. You start to get to know people a little bit, and just got more and more involved. To give you one of the fun things that we did while we were labeling the trees, they all have numbers, so we started with numbers. And so someone got the number 1, 2, 3. And so they raise their hands and they're cheering. It's like, I got 1, 2, 3. And of course, then the engineers in the group, we start, well, there's a prime number here, and there's a this number there, and there's all these numbers where the first 2 add up to the third one. And but we just had a great time. And so that kind of led us to get involved with the Ridges. So and now, so we started out gardening, then we went into climate change. I'm still a part of the climate change, but now I'm working with the Ridges, and starting to do much more volunteer work there. They have a great citizen science organization that's got a lot of things that they do. In fact, one of the things that maybe Margaret and I will get a chance to go do is they monitor eagles' nests. So, and one of the things is you got to kind of go off and you got to kind of look for the eagle's nest. And we know that there's one flying around here about a mile or 2 from our place, but we're not quite sure. So, it just kind of keeps growing.
Can you, so what is the Ridges actually?
Okay, so it's a sanctuary for plants. So they have about 2,000 acres. It was originally set aside. It's the first. It's kind of like it's like a forest preserve down from Illinois, but it's part of like a land trust up here. So it was set aside, in the 1950s because they had an orchid that was very rare. And they were going to build like a resort or something on this property, and it had this rare orchid. And so the environmentalists kind of stood up and said, no, no, no. So it was started with some orchids, and then it's kind of grown over time. And it was one of the places that when the naturalists, they take you around to the different places that you can volunteer. It was one of them that we went into and we learned about them. But they have a very strong education. So they have 3 pillars. So education, and as well as preserving the current land that they have. So that's the Ridges, and it's called the Ridges because up here there's sand dunes that kind of go up and down and up and down, and it leads to a very unique environment for very rare plants to survive in. So so we've been starting to volunteer more and more and more at the Ridges through their program.
Yeah, that's great. And I know we learned a lot about you. You were always taking pictures of trees and plants when we were hiking, and you were interested in the geology and the geography and the plant life. So you've
Yeah,
probably learned a lot.
yeah. Well, I'm just touching the surface. There's so many of us that are out there. Yeah, Judy, my father said, always taught us that we need to learn our whole life, and you got to keep learning and learning and learning. And by the way, that was one of the things that really shocked me because there was a time when he just gave up, right? And he didn't learn anymore, right? And it was like, ooh, I don't want to do that. So we're out there, and there was like plant identification. We went out on these plots, and the really cool thing we like about volunteering there is it's like, you know what, we'll teach you, right? We will teach you what you need to know. And there's so many other people that are out there I'd like to walk through the forest and be able to say, oh, that's a red pine and that's a white pine, and oh yeah, that's a balsam fir, and stuff like that. And it takes a lot of time, but there's so many people that have so much grace that they can do that, but they're letting you try and figure it out. So we all have our little books and we're all trying to understand what's going on. But the learning is fun. It's something new, and it energizes my brain, and it also gives me something to look forward to, right? And I actually do. I look forward to the work days such that I can be with people that are really, really cool people, I think. And then B, I can learn some new things. Every time that we go out, there's something new give you an idea. So one of them is and also a master naturalist, but she's been in one for like 20 years. And we're walking out to the plot to try and, there's a group of about 5 or 6 of us. And the leader, she keeps going out there. And then this lady sees, oh, there's this flower over here, right? Rarely blows it. We're all off, and she's telling us all about it. And
Yeah.
we're learning all about its history and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just plethora of new ideas, new thoughts, and new things to learn about that we're experiencing right now.
That's awesome. And
Yep.
what do you see in the future for your involvement with the ridges or other areas? Do you have any
Yeah,
dreams or plans for the
I
future?
do. I have a big dream. I guess we're going a little public with this, but so one of the plantings, I was talking with the director of the Climate Change Coalition because he was out there helping as well. And we're just talking, we're just shooting around. I go, hey, you know what? Have you ever thought of why we don't have an arboretum up here? Because we're talking about trees, right? And it's all about trees. And he goes, his face lit up, and he goes, I've been thinking about that myself for the longest time. And he's like in his 30s, maybe 40. That's all. So the big dream, I think someday that I have, and I think others up here as well, because some of the guys at the Ridges too, I kind of planted that seed. One guy looked at me and said, "What's an arboretum?" It's like, oh, okay, but we can teach you. But yeah, I think the dream that I have would be that we could start a place. I would say it's a place where trees can talk and they can tell their story. Because they're the more that I'm learning about them, the more fascinating they become. They have a DNA helical that is actually in some ways more complex than the human one, but it's made up of the same elements. I mean, God put us all together here. I mean, it's like, okay. Um, so it's a place I think their story needs to be told. Because one of the things that really hit me hard was when we built a new place here, and we had to cut down over 30 trees, and we built on the existing outline of the house, but we still had to cut down all these trees, and I was like, oh man. And it just was easy, just went in, zip, 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 and they're gone, right? Some of them were 80, plus years old. So yeah, I think their story. I'd like to get their story out, and that's the cool part about. I think the Ridges also is in line with that because I think we need to educate, and we need to educate the next generation of people, such that if we can't turn over the greatest of environments to them, at least we can turn over some ideas of what we got to do to go make it better. So that's kind of the dream that we have right now, and we'll see how that pans out. It's a 5-year plan, though. It's not going to be short term, but I'm excited about seeing it
Oh, that's
maybe come to
awesome.
fruition.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're so right that if we can at least transfer the knowledge and the information we have to the next generation, then this can continue. And I think that's an awesome idea to start an arboretum.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking at. I propose. Why don't we use the Lorax as our speaker, right? Well,
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
we could license it for a little bit from Dr. Seuss and company out there, and then just let the Lorax kind of tell the story as you're walking through and
Yeah.
identifying it. But like I said, we'll see. We'll see if we can get that to go or not.
Sounds great.
Yep.
So Paul, do you have any advice for listeners who are watchers who might wonder where God is leading them, or what maybe they're approaching retirement and are not sure how to get ready? What is your advice for folks like that?
Yeah. Okay, just my experience, I would say first off, and I think I can't remember where in scripture it is, but it talks about it was God in the wind. No, God was not in the wind. Was God in the lightning and the storm and the fire? No,
Yeah,
God
that
was
was
not there.
Elijah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the soft voice, right? It's the
Mhm.
soft, still voice. And that's where I'm finding I'm able to listen to him more is in the soft, still quiet. And so, and it's not the dramatic stuff. It's actually, and like I mentioned before, the absence of some things. And so I'm paying more attention to the absence of fear is something that's tremendous in my life. that I'm starting to recognize, like, wait a minute, this, and it's the peace that he says that passes all understanding, right? And when I have that, it's like, okay, and then I pay attention. It's like, okay, something's going on here. God's saying something. So I would say you got to have those quiet times, and you got to have a place where if you're really desire to seek out God's will, that you're going to need to find them, because he isn't in the wind and per se. I mean, he could be if he wanted to, but he
Yeah.
typically doesn't. But then I would
Yeah.
say, um, don't wait until retirement. I just had my a relative come up, and we were staying, and he asked me, and he said, "Hey, because he's doesn't know what to do, right?" He said, "I know you got an acre and you got all this work to do," and it's like, whoa, 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 time out. That's not what it's about, right? It's not that, oh, I got this busy work that I want to go do.
Yeah.
You need to find something in which that you can, as a master naturalist, a guy by the name of Teal, he talks about, he says, he found in his journeys, he drove 19,000 miles in his book, Journey into Summer. And he says in there, he calls them happy men. And the happy men, so he would ask people as he would drive these journeys as to what's the happiest person and why are they happy and all that kind of stuff. And the common thread he found was not that they were wealthy or they were poor or whatever. They were all over the roadmap, except all of them had something that they could lose themselves into, right? And that's what, as I was reading it, I looked at the ridges and what that, and it's like, I'm losing myself into it. I'm talking about it all the time. People are tired of hearing about all the stuff we're doing, but I look at it then from more of a positive way, that really that's just something that makes me happy, and I can really pour myself into, and then feel that I'm making a difference. So I wouldn't wait until that line, that end zone line. Try and figure out ahead of time. The thing that my guys encouraged me of, and the thing that I listened to the most, was they said, you get to know these charities, right, or these nonprofits, and then you get to know the people that are there, as well, before you actually have much more time. You can be present a little bit, and they encouraged me to go do that. So I would encourage them to do that.
Excellent advice. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for your time and your energy. And I truly do pray that this arboretum happens and that you continue to grow in your knowledge and expertise in this area.
All right.
And
Thank you, Judy.
even in the snowy winter, I don't
In
know.
the,
Yeah, you
yep.
probably have more snow up there than we do here.
No, it's actually, we only have about 3 or 4 inches on the ground.
Really?
So yeah,
Okay, we
it's
got
not too
about
bad.
10 inches here.
Yeah.
Whew.
No, we get the white, but we don't have to shovel. So that's the
Okay,
plus.
that's not bad. That's
That's
not
not
bad.
bad. All right.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, and I wish you the best. Have a Merry Christmas and enjoy your December.
You too. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.